Are you standing up, George? You look like you're standing up.
I haven't. I've found out I've got a hernia, so I've got to stand up as much as I possibly can.
So you're making me feel uncomfortable. No, I'm joking. Right. Hi, everyone. We're live for Chargeheads. No, it's not Chargeheads live anymore. It's YEV. Get that right. So second episode, here we are. And we have got Kevin Booker just below me, just down there. And we've got George Kinghorn on for the first time. So really excited about this week's episode because we started this new format with YEV. Unfortunately, Alex Grant unable to make it this week, and that's why we've got George jumping on board. So, but yeah, we've got some really exciting things to talk about today. But as a bit of an intro and what I've been doing, so my name's Tim Aylan. I am part of Chargeheads. I am the Chargeheads, if you like. And what I've been doing, been sorting out sorting out some suspension bits on my modified Tesla Model 3 long range, which has done 107,000 miles now. And some body work has been done as well. But that's all in the video for next week. So check that out. And there will be some exciting news coming about the TVR as well. So, yeah, those that have been waiting 4 years for that, that is coming through. But George, take it away. Tell people about yourself and what you're doing at the moment.
So, George Kinghorn. I am the owner of Kinghorn Electric Vehicles in Durham, up in the northeast of England. And we sell, service and repair modern EVs and convert classic cars to electric. We kind of started with the conversion stuff 6 years ago. And this week I've been finalising the conversion of a Mercedes 280 SE, a 1969 one, which has got a Nissan Leaf motor and about 80 kilowatt hours of Tesla Model S battery packs in it. So it's a terrible job that I have to drive around in it continually and make sure that everything's right in it and pop to the shops and show off on it. And especially this one's got air ride on it because to get the suspension nice and leveled. So every time you go to the supermarket and let it air out, you get a swarm of kids around you. It's great fun.
And I suppose they wonder, like, why isn't it making any noise as you drive off? Is it quite a long conversation with that one?
Yeah, I was saying to you just before we came live that our customers always complain that all of the cars that we convert take a long time to go anywhere. And I'm always puzzled by that to begin with. And it's the fact that when they get somewhere, they spend at least an hour and a half telling everybody about them and explaining about the conversion and how many miles it'll do and that it won't catch on fire. And all of those things that have to dispel the myth every single day.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that, George. I'm not going to put a date on it still, but there we go. But thanks for giving us an insight, George, and what you're doing and you know what Kinghorn electric vehicles do. So I was just reading your T-shirt because I wanted to get it right.
Wow.
But Kevin, you've been doing loads last couple of weeks. Go for it, Kevin. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I've been driving a very long way in an electric car to a single charge. So actually got a 5th Guinness World Record a couple of weekends ago. Partnered up with Sam Clark, who a lot of you probably know as Chief Vehicle Officer of GridServe. And we did just over 569 miles to a single charge in a Mustang Mach-E. So, I mean, it was very tense. By the end, we really didn't think we were going to make this one, right? Because the last 21 miles were done with it saying 0% battery left.
20 miles on zero.
Yeah, 21 miles, and it had the red tortoise on. I don't know if that's more severe than the orange tortoise.
I see
on the screen. But yeah, this is probably the hardest record I've got, mainly for sheer endurance, because we were doing sort of the more rural roads. Because when you do these records on the road, you don't want to get in people's way, you don't want to disturb people and stuff. So we ended up going through lots. I've seen lots of lovely little villages from the Norwich area, but just sort of the stress at the end, literally, when you're on tortoise road, you don't know how much it's left. I mean, and it was getting closer and closer to the record. I mean, the video is available on the Webfleet site and stuff, you can actually see the tension for the last bit. But the last bit, all the cameras had run out of batteries that we were recording with. I think the mics had run out of batteries. The car hadn't run out of batteries. So the last few video clips were recorded on Sam's phone in between navigating, because with the Guinness rules, you're not allowed to overlap yourself. So you literally have to do from point A to point B. So we're determined not to make mistakes. And as you're getting closer and closer to that record distance, you're thinking, we can't lose this record for 2 miles. Or first of all, it was, we can't lose this record for 21 miles. Then it was 8 miles was the next thing. And then it was like 2 miles, and we've got to keep going. I think we could have kept going a little bit longer, but we'd run out of road basically. And to make sure all the data went back, we had to do an ignition off sequence, and it was getting so, because we hadn't run the Mustang to totally empty. We didn't know if it would just shut down without a proper ignition off thing. So we did that at the end, because I probably would have liked to do the 673 miles to a single charge, because then it would have been 200 miles above WLTP rather than the 190 odd. But it kind of just shows that if you drive them carefully, you can do significantly more than the WLTP range. And this wasn't a modified Mustang Mach-E. This was a standard off-the-shelf Mustang Mach-E from the Ford press fleet. The only thing we did. What were you
telling me about the comments in Daily Mail? Go on, tell everyone this.
So I made the mistake, because it went to the Daily Mail website, of actually reading some of the comments. And it's interesting how the number of people who commented as if they were actually there and said, this is definitely a stripped out prototype. There's no way it could. I mean, I can look at it on my drive at the moment. It doesn't seem particularly stripped out. It's got everything a Mustang Mach-E will have. The only thing we changed is we went to the standard 18-inch wheels rather than the posh piano black 19-inch wheels. So we just put the standard wheels on it and A-rated tires. So there was no other modifications.
What PSI did you go for on the tires? Was there any changes on that? Because I know that can make a hell of a difference sometimes.
So because, again, the AA were the people who inspected it, it was set to the manufacturer's tire pressures. So it's exactly what the manufacturers said. Okay. There's no, so it wasn't like running 100 PSI. It was, and the Mustang Mach-E is quite high pressures on the back because it's rear-motored, but they were all standard. I think it was 38 on the fronts. Right. So nothing really abnormal.
The Teslas run with 41 front and rear. I'm sure every other Tesla driver will know that, but which I think is quite high personally. But
yeah, I mean, I run my own Ioniq 5, and the Konas we run at 40 and have much better tire wear. The Renault Zoe was another one that had much more even tire wear at 40.
Yeah. Well, I had similar questions as commuter branch line here. I'm really interested to know what speed you were going to do 21 miles at 0% efficiency. What was it, 45, that sort of speed?
So obviously it wasn't motorway speed. We were going basically the posted speed. So it was through villages and stuff like that. So it was on the posted. So it was between the 30 and 40 miles an hour. The roads were picked deliberately for that. Because again, it's not we're not trying to prove that you can do that every day. It is extreme with the Guinness World Record. So you have to push it much further than everyone else. Yeah. But it is literally just a light foot. I mean, being mindful of the acceleration. Again, as you all drive EVs, you know that most EVs aren't slow. You know that the two-wheel drive Mustang, I think, is 290 brake horsepower. Yeah. So there's always that temptation to race off. But this was just driving it like you drive any ICE cars, as it were. So not racing off the lines, just accelerating normally.
Yeah, and I've always been told that it's all about that initial acceleration makes all the difference. Just that first sort of up to 10 to 20 miles an hour makes all the difference. Yeah, it's a good point there. Well done for bagging the record for sure. No, well done, Kev. Really good.
And we beat cars which probably the Mustang shouldn't be able to beat. I think the record was held previously by a Zeekr Chinese car with a much bigger battery than the 91 kilowatt hour user was in the Mach-E. Okay.
So what was the miles per kilowatt after the event then?
6.25 we worked it out to be.
That's good.
I know that I think myself and George are probably with a heavier right foot. We'll probably be wanting to go for the quickest 0 to 60 or the quickest quarter mile. In fact, I was just about to look up what the quickest quarter mile was. I
think it's the Rimac that got loads of them because it did a spate of doing lots of performance records.
It did a lot of stuff they did around the Nürburgring, but it a place you'll get a quarter mile time.
No, no, for sure. Yeah, the Rimac Nevera is covered in 8.25. The second is the Pininfarina Batista. Sounds like an exotic footballer. 8.55.
Batista.
And then the Lotus Evija did it in, that's probably a wrong pronunciation, 8.6 at, 100 and something or other. That's I mean, that's quick. There must be a quicker, like, purpose-built drag car that have done it quicker, though, sure.
Yeah, over in the States, that one of the kind of he's actually called the daddy of drag racing. So Don Garlett's, he's actually gone electric, and I'm sure they're more focused on speed at the moment than the RPTs. So and he's kind of at 250 mile an hour in the quarter mile, around about that area. So they're not as quick as top fuel dragsters at the moment, but we're in the infancy of EVs. So. They'll soon get there. So.
Yeah, because it's more things like Pikes Peak has been the focus, hasn't it? With like the Super Van 4.2 from Ford, which is ludicrously quick with 2,000 brake horsepower. Yeah. I mean, where do you stop with brake horsepower? But back on the efficiency, I just today, to prove that I've driven the Mustang normally and not tried, and it's bang on WLTP. So it's not unachievable.
So I suppose for balance, as you were saying before, that me and you would get worse miles per kilowatt hour. I always try and drive things really like a petrol or diesel car, just to find out what the worst is of consumption. Because then at least when I can talk to customers and say, look, I drove it like an idiot and I got 100 mile out of it. Whereas with Kevin, probably would get 200 mile out of it. So it's kind of with probably the bookends of efficiency. Kevin's got the really good stuff, and I've got the really, really bad stuff. So then the real world is somewhere in between the two, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's when you're utilizing stuff like the regenerative braking and not using the acceleration so much. I think, generally speaking, I'm quite a careful driver. I still can't, I can just about get what the Tesla says I should get if I drive it like Miss Daisy without the aircon on, because I think the car with 10 to 12% battery degradation. Actually, I'm planning to do a battery degradation test soon on Rusty. It says about 281 miles. And I drove it to Southampton and back the other day, and I reckon 250. And on the way down there, I had aircon on. On the way back, I didn't have aircon on. So I would say that's a pretty fair test. And 250 miles roughly. So yeah, I think I've got a long way to go before I'm in Kevin's skill set there. That's for sure.
The interesting thing is, the one thing that people don't consider for power consumption, which you can't switch off on modern cars, is all the ADAS systems. Yeah. They actually, if you look, so I mean, the Hyundai's are one of the better cars because it shows you the consumption of things. Most of those systems are taking between 200 and 300 watts of power just to run those systems now.
So when you say ADAS, what do you mean by that? Sorry, Kevin.
So the advanced driver assistance systems, the autonomous braking, lane keep assist, all the things that basically read the road for you. And they're quite high consuming things, which are actually the same in a petrol car. They'll be consuming that much power off your alternator.
Yeah.
I thought it would eat into it, but I didn't think it'd be so bad because I use my full self-driving all the time, like on the motorway, because from a convenience point of view, I absolutely love it. And I'm someone who likes to drive cars, but when you're on the motorway, it's not really a lot you can do. Not much driving you can really do on that, unless you're being a bit naughty, which obviously I'm never naughty. So,
but then things like that, even if you're not actually using it, it's still on and actually consuming power. So it's not, even whether you've got it switched on and actually functional, or whether it's just monitoring without you actually using it, it's still drawing the same amount of power from the car. So it's, by not using it, you're not saving any consumption.
Yeah. Sorry, go on, Kevin.
Yeah, because all these systems are on in the background anyway. I mean, it's like going back to the old petrol cars. Remember with Mercedes and stuff, you could switch the traction control off, but it wasn't really off. It was always lurking in the background. So you'd have them on like the Top Gear test tracks, where if you had too much fun, it would just come back on to say, no, I'm not having that. So these things are always like sitting in the background, kind of listening or watching in many cases now, because you have so many computer vision systems on a modern car.
It'd be really interesting to see what the TVR gets in terms of efficiency, because bearing in mind that the motor's going into the prop shaft, into the diff, so there's quite a lot of mechanical loss there. However, it should be quite light. It should be, I don't know, 1,100, 1,200 kilograms. And what potential, bodywork things I can do to improve the aero. I don't know whether there is any kind of, I'd love to see what I can do to it to improve that, while still making it look good, obviously.
So is the aim with that to have a totally flat floor? Like most
Yeah.
EVs have totally flat floors. Are you going to try and, because one of the biggest savings would be to consider the aero underneath, which has always been an issue on ICE cars until they put covers on everything.
That's a bloody good shout, Kevin.
It is apart from DVLA, it'll fail your inspection because it's a modification. It's not, so these days when we re-register converted EVs, the cars have to be literally as they came out of the factory. So if you've modified anything on the chassis, and even unless you can find some fixing points for a plate to go along the floor, anything like that just becomes a nightmare.
Yeah, you cannot touch the chassis. I mean, luckily, what Ralph has done is he's got some fixings, so they're like rubber fixings that fix onto the chassis to be able to run, coolant lines and just other bits and bobs. And also, they found ways of being able to put like an under tray underneath the motor, which is flat. So that could help a little bit, but I'm sure there might be things that can be done.
So we've done 3 Morris Minors now, just about to do our 4th, and we're using this Leaf motor and 2/3 of the battery pack. But because that, so we basically just use the motor, the inverter, and the batteries, and then everything else is new. So new charger, battery management system, and everything. And because it's much, much lighter than it was when it was in the Leaf, they're generally getting 4 to 5 miles per kilowatt hour, even though they're not as good aerodynamically. They're just and we actually take power out of the Nissan Leaf motor, because obviously it would have 80 kilowatts, 100 and odd brake horsepower, and the Morris Minor had 39 before. So if we put too much torque and power through the original gearbox and back axle, just they disappear. They become more efficient when they're in the Morris Minor than they were when they're in the Leaf, just because we've turned things down and because we've lessened the weight of the vehicle. So.
Well, it seems like we've naturally, after Kevin's fantastic achievement, started talking about efficiencies. So I suppose the next question would be to George, because I'm sure you talk to customers all the time, is that generally is the concern, isn't it, for most people that haven't, bought an EV or considering it, is the range, isn't it? And what sort of things do people ask, and what do you say to people to put their mind at rest?
Range has become more of a secondary thing when you're speaking to kind of first-time EV buyers these days. Right. A lot of it is the longevity, how long it's going to last, how long the batteries are going to last, how much it's going to cost when they run out, whether you can actually get batteries. The usual thing is, you're going to go on fire, how safe are they, all those kind of things. We have to handhold them through that. And I think most people, by the time they get to talk to me about buying one, have already done a bit of research. So they've already kind of said, right, well, we need something that's going to do 250 miles because we go to Scotland once a year. So that's more, that conversation it's more about, well, look, why are you planning for 1 or 2 journeys a year instead of planning for 99% of your journeys each year? So it's trying to just kind of give people that mindset of, and a lot of our customers, especially in the early years, the most we could do was sell them a kind of a 30 kilowatt hour Leaf, which would do 100 miles on the motorway at best. But we worked out the maths, and in them days they were saving so much money that when they went on the journeys off to Scotland for 1 week a year, they could actually hire a Tesla Model 3 from EV Rent with the money they'd saved, which would do the journey. So it's kind of mind shifting and using different tools for different jobs. So what's the point in having a car that'll do 300 miles range if you only do that 300 miles once or twice a year?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here, because this is all about having a balanced EV podcast, as you guys know. So I've been playing that card constantly to my wife, and she goes down to see her sister down above Brighton, and randomly, goes on holidays occasionally, exactly the same sort of scenarios. And I said, well, we could rent a car, or, coming up with lots of different solutions. But I think a lot of people just want to have not everybody, but a lot of people want to have that kind of little bit of a buffer, and they're just a bit nervous about it. But I suppose when you start highlighting the cost factors, that really does help, especially at the moment, because if it is tough out there at the moment, that is for sure. So yeah, I think it's not an easy sell when people are in that mindset that they definitely need to have that extra range. But you could argue that now we've got cars that have got a much better range than the Leaf and the Zoe. We've got MG ZSs, which are sort of $9,000 now, Ionic 28 kilowatt hour batteries, which are about the same price. It's getting better and better, isn't it, the range for the value for money? But what's your thought?
I remember a lot of the press about Tesla doing a long range car for like 20. What's it going to be called? The new kind of smaller Tesla, 250 mile range, $25,000.
Model 2, isn't it? Eventually, they're aiming for, isn't it? I think.
But then that car exists now. It's called a Kia e-Niro, a 3-year-old one that you can buy. It's a lot less than $25,000. It's like, not so much.
You think?
Yeah, you can get one for like 13-14 grand. With maybe like we just got one for a customer, a Kia e-Niro 2, so kind of the base model, still the same mechanicals and everything, and that was £13,000 with 30,000 miles in it. So for 13 grand, there's a 300-mile range car.
Just to go back, commuter branch line. So I missed your mention there. Yeah, Johnny Smith did have an electric drag car called the Flux Capacitor, built from an Enfield. Very weird looking thing. It's pretty cool though. I'd love to have seen that.
Last time I saw it was in Bewley.
In where, sorry?
It was in Bewley Transport Museum.
It is. Yeah. I think he donated it. I always wonder if turning the stereo up has much effect. It probably does if you've got a Tesla sound system.
Yeah. It makes a massive difference. You just can't hear anything then.
No.
To be fair, the Mach-E has a Bang & Olufsen 16-speaker system in it as well. So,
were you bashing out the tunes, or did you have it on nothing?
Sam wanted to listen to the cricket, so I'll let him listen to the cricket. I don't understand cricket.
I seem to remember the Nissan Leaf Techna, especially the first shape one, had a subwoofer and a sound system done by Bose.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of stuff around it being a low energy consumption, high end stereo system.
Really?
I vaguely remember. I've got it, but I'm such a Nissan Leaf nerd that I've actually got every single Nissan Leaf brochure. So I will. Next time I'm on, I'll have a look at that and tell you.
George, you need to let me know what size inch the Bose subwoofer is.
Oh, it's like a 6-inch, but it's in a big box in the boot of a.
Have you got one? I really need one for the TVR. I need some bass in the TVR, and I want no consumption. We'll talk about that another time. But just something that's come to mind, it's probably come up a load of times before, was it Nissan that they used to offer like a petrol diesel car to do a long journey? Was it Nissan that did that?
I think Renault did it as well. I think they both did it for a brief period where you could have a rental of a courtesy car.
I think that's a really good idea, because the problem with saying go and rent a car for that long journey, which is a great idea, unfortunately, with most people, it's during the school holidays and it's extortionate and it completely wipes out all the savings. But you could argue you still got the savings of the service and maintenance and, less emissions, and you're saving on emission zones. So there are still probably savings there, but still, it's a bit of a kicker, isn't it? So yeah, unless you get a taxi, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
public transport.
Talking about long range and stuff and not needing it, the Mustang Mach-E is quite a prime example of that. It does 373 miles WLTP. It's got a 91 kilowatt hour 370 is WLTP.
Really?
373, yeah. But it's got 91 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. You think most of the time, most people are carting around the weight of a 91 kilowatt hour pack, which is the gross capacity is 98 kilowatt, call it a 100 kilowatt hour pack, to do the run to Tesco's. And you're thinking that's actually, when they can charge so quickly now, over 100 kilowatts, do you actually need that size pack? yeah, we needed to stop a lot more times on the record than the car did.
Well, I do always stop. Like if I go early in the morning, if I'm doing a business route, I'll always have 2 coffees, one before I leave, one as I'm on my way, and I can't get past 120 miles before stopping. But it's interesting. Yeah, that's really good. That is a really good, like for WLTP, which I never achieved, but I know, Kevin, that's a walk in the park for you. So
one thing I hadn't thought about before until I bumped into a friend of mine at Tesco's car park tonight. He's just got an EV6, which again is a good long range car, kind of 250, 300 miles. But he doesn't do very many long journeys. But he lives in a terraced house in the centre of Durham City, and he hasn't got charging at home. And he says, so I've got a long range EV that I don't need the long range, but it means I only have to charge once a week or 10 days because it does all of my journeys. So I don't have to worry about trailing a cable across the pathway, all of those problems that people have. So it's not just long range, it's also, it spreads out the need for constant trickle charging that all the rest of it have got very, very used to. So
that's a really, really good shout. I like that because I don't think I've never heard anyone use that example in that way before, but it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Kevin's had enough. He's had enough.
He's using too much electricity. The Mac E's just taking all the electricity and turned his camera on.
It is actually plugged in, but it's set to charge at my cheap electricity. I'm not gonna pay more than 8.5 pence a kilowatt hour.
Not at all.
Apparently, there's a government grant to help with that at the minute. Help with what, Zoe? I don't think there's a government grant to help with the gutter thing.
What's it called? It's like that little charge gully. And charge gully is another one, isn't it?
Charge gully, turbo cart charge. There's a few of them. There was one that was taken up by Deborah Meaden, I think, from the Dragons. Yeah, there we go. That is the one.
Which one's that's the one? We don't know which one's that's the one because we take two.
That concept, I think Zoe was talking about. This actually rolls really nicely onto the news story this week, Kevin.
Yeah, so I've seen a news story, but basically, MFG, as you'll know, do quite a lot of charge stations now, and they're reasonably big charge hubs. There's Hillington; they've been rejected for a charging station, and the grounds from the sort of the residents and stuff there seems to be because of the biblical fire it will cause, which is mad because it's like biblical. There are rules of how close you can go to the petrol pumps, and it's like I just find that really weird concept that someone will reject a charging station for the much significantly lower fire risk than a massive petrol station that has a huge amount of flammable liquid in it.
Yeah, but if it's going to be biblical, mate, you know. So I found it, and I thought I'd share. Look at this. Worries about biblical fire. Stop MFG's plan for EV charge points. I mean, you'd think that a petrol station might be more of a biblical fire than, you know.
I did not realise what's in the tanks underneath that tarmac.
Yeah, maybe they're thinking about the mix there, but I mean, it's obviously someone from the council that is either been given, in my opinion, been given a bit of a cheeky backhander, and he's introduced this story into the media, or someone needs, you know.
I think it's the education piece that people believe the FUD when there's lots of, like, you look on YouTube, how many negative stories there are about EV fires, but no one reports a petrol car fire. I mean, how many times have you driven down the motorway and seen a car on fire at the motorway? I mean, I can say I've seen it 2 or 3 times. So for me to have seen that, there's got to be significantly more than the EV. It's just EV fires become a story. Which
I actually videoed one. I put it on my TikTok, and people say, "Oh, why are you videoing it and not calling the fire brigade? They'd already been called. Why aren't you putting it out?" Because they didn't have any fire extinguishers. So I was like, "Oh, take a video of this." So I thought it was quite amusing. It wasn't amusing for the people that owned it, but in a car park next to loads of other cars. Unfortunately, they didn't have a tannoy there. It was a Lidl, Aldi. So obviously they, cutting costs. But my Tesla wasn't far away, so I moved my car out the way straight away. But it's just the media, isn't it? Just being
Well,
ridiculous.
And I think to bring balance, the one thing we do need to accept that in the unlikely situation when an EV battery does go up, it does go up in a more spectacular way than a fuel car, but it is, again, is 20 times less likely.
But
Would
it
you say
takes
it's in a biblical way.
it takes a lot for batteries to go on fire. I mean, I've just bought a X-Taxi Nissan Leaf for 40 kilowatt hour and 137,000 miles on it, and I'm going to keep it for myself and give it to my wife to use. And when
it's a new shape. Is it a new shape one?
It's a new shape one, yes. One of the first. It's a 2018. It's an Ascent, the base range, of the range, but it had a short. So the car wouldn't drive, and it came in, and I said, right, okay. So we pulled the battery, opened it up, and the batteries had been rapid charged 1,782 times in its lifetime, and hardly any Type 2 trickle charges. Yes, for 2 weeks a year.
I'm not sure what that was to do with.
Maybe needing a car. But
that's probably the Nissan rental thing. Didn't they used to give you 2 weeks a year?
Yeah, you did. So we got open the battery case up, and as we expected, the rear battery modules were massively overexpanded. But this one was so bad, it must have been rapid charged 5 or 6 times a day. That it actually split the pouches, and the electrolyte had leaked out of them. And it's the first time we've seen kind of the bottom of the battery case being full of liquid. So we cleaned all that up, and we've replaced all of the modules with brand new 40 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf modules, and I've been driving around in it for the last couple of days. So the car's now ready to do another 137,000 miles, and we've recycled the old modules that were in the car.
What would you sell that car for if you had to sell it?
It's a bit of a funny one. It's probably worth, like, with that mileage on it, it's probably about a $6,000 car, but then it's got a $6,000 battery in it.
Yeah.
If you were to buy that battery brand new, it would be, well, Nissan would charge you $15,000 for it.
Yeah. So hence why you want to use it yourself, right?
Yeah. But then, I mean, we've got enough stock. We've got stock of something like about 20 sets of 40 kilowatt hour brand new modules available to us. So we can do that for anybody. We've just re-batteried a taxi for an ENV 200. It was a wheelchair one. And the company were like, look, we spent a load of money turning this into a wheelchair accessible vehicle. We really don't want to get rid of it. It's done. And again, it was high mileage, 130,000 miles. And we took the batteries out of that and just swapped the modules. And again, it's ready to do another 130,000 because the motors, this is the other thing. With 130,000 mile car, we were talking before, Kevin mentioned the fact that for the price of doing the battery change is like rebuilding your engine in an ICE car.
Yeah.
But in that time that ICE car did 137,000 miles, its power trailed off. So it was less powerful and less efficient when it got to the end of its life. The Nissan Leaf isn't. Its motor is exactly the same. We even measured the end float bear and wear on a Nissan Leaf motor that had done 200,000 miles years ago, and it was no different to a brand new one. So nothing wears out in them. Yes, the car's drivetrain and suspension might wear, but that power and that efficiency has been the same right the way through its life.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting. And the reason I'm interested is because I really want to replace my wife's petrol auto Mazda 3, which is probably worth $4,500, $5,000, something like that, because it's low mileage, full history. And she likes a new shape Nissan Leaf. And there's not many other cars at that sort of money unless you go up another $3,000. I'm talking about high mileage Nissan Leaf. So yeah, you come across one of those cars again, George, you'll have to let us know, because I think I'd be interested. Because what I like about I know it's CHAdeMO, but is the fact that it's probably more likely you can use it as a house battery and vehicle to grid straight away as well. So you can start benefiting from utilizing it that way. I don't know if that is something that you know much about, George.
We've not done it personally ourselves. We've got people that use them that have got a lot of solar, so they've got 2 or 3 electric cars, just so that then they're not exporting to the grid; they're just filling the cars up all of the time. But using it the other way around, kind of from the vehicle back to the house, we've not really got anybody that's been doing that.
So isn't there someone who's working on a CHAdeMO to CCS adapter as well? Sure, we've used on that.
our battery supplier, the guy who gets us the Nissan Leaf batteries, just bought a CCS to CHAdeMO adapter. So we're going to be doing some testing with that over the next few months. But what we've decided to do is actually share that amongst a few people. So yes, it's £1,000, but then you don't need it all the time. It's only if you're going to do long journeys, and we probably use that car to do long journeys twice a year.
Yeah.
So then we'll just use it when we need to use it. So
yeah, no, it's, you know, my wife does very low mileage. It's very, very occasionally she'll do a long journey, but she could take the Tesla, you know. So it's just trying to fit it in, which isn't going to make too much of an issue, really. So yeah, just one of those, I suppose. But
we'll find you a nice new shape Nissan Leaf. So.
There we go. There we go. Oh, it's me with the camera now.
It is. You've gone off.
There we go. There we go.
So with your experience with Nissans and stuff, are you with the batteries? Are you finding the sort of biggest thing that kind of makes them age is the lack of battery cooling? Because obviously, lots of people say that's what causes the weakness of Nissan Leafs and things like that. Is that what you're finding, that that's the rapid charging and lack of cooling is what's prematurely aging the batteries, and that's not going to happen to much newer cars like the Aria and stuff when they're all liquid cooled?
Yeah, you got it spot on, Kevin. If you think about it, these were designed nearly 15 years ago. So 2011, the Leaf came out, which is 14 years ago now, but it was designed much before that. And Nissan's strange decision not to go with liquid cooled batteries and staying with that all the way through, that is what kills a Nissan Leaf. But that said, if you've charged it properly, I mean, the worst case scenarios are always taxis, because they're always rapid charging because they want to get as much out of the car as they possibly can and not realizing how much damage it does to it. But even if you rapid charged a liquid cooled car, it would degrade the battery some, but nowhere near as much as an air cooled battery does.
Not so much on Teslas, apparently. There's so much information, and I know Kevin might raise an eyebrow to this because, and I'm obviously a bit of a Tesla fan, but apparently there's so much information out there that's saying that even if you rapid charge a Tesla, it makes very little difference to the longevity of the battery. Whether that's to do with the cooling systems they have, or about the preheating, I don't know, but that's what a lot of the data out there suggests. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other cars have longevity. But on that point of longevity, George, bear in mind you do a lot of service and repairs. I mean, if people are looking for a good value electric car, obviously with the Leaf, high mileage, lots of rapid charge, and you're looking at quite a degraded battery. With the Renault Zoes, they tend to have kind of charger issues, don't they?
Yeah, the great thing about the Nissan Leaf is it's basically been the same car since 2013 to now. Don't
tell Nissan that. No. It's a totally new one in 2018.
Yeah, but I think that's one of its strengths, though, is the fact that the motor and the drivetrain, in fact, the body, it's only the nose and the back end and the rear doors that are different between. You can actually swap Mark 1 and Mark 2 front doors between cars because they're exactly the same.
Really?
So
wow, that's amazing.
The first time we got a crashed new shape Nissan Leaf to strip for the parts for conversion, we were like, hang on a minute, this is just the same car underneath. So it is literally the same shell structure underneath and the same drivetrain layout in the front and stuff. So that's what's good about them, is it means that like in theory, you can take an early 24 kilowatt hour car and fit the 62 kilowatt hour battery. And because they're exactly the same physical mounting points and everything in them. So that's
they really should have completely changed it in 2020, 2021. Although I believe there is a new one coming, isn't there?
Yeah. So the things I've heard, and this isn't anything from any.
You won't find any pictures for it.
The new Leaf is supposed to be a small SUV, which makes me shudder every time I say the word SUV.
The old crossover.
So it'll have the same nameplate, but it won't have anything to do with the old car, which is
no.
I have plenty of them to play with still, and so I don't mind that. So going back to your question about the Zoe, the problem we have with Renault is that right the way through the whole development, they've changed like we've just repaired a Renault Kangoo, which shares a motor with the Zoe.
Yeah,
it was the BEB unit that had got in it, but the only PEB, Power Electric Board, I think is what it stands for. I'm not sure up on the Renault Zoe. The guys told us that's what it needed. And it's basically a control unit for the charging system. And there was only a 6-month period that one was made, and you can't use it. So if you haven't got that particular used component, I ended up getting one from Spain. It took me 2 months. The car was off the road for 2 months. Searched the world, found somebody in Spain, got it arrived yesterday, and we're just fitting it. In fact, it's on the ramp behind me somewhere.
Well, shout out to EV breakers if you need used parts. And just thinking about that, since I'm shouting out EV breakers because they're good guys, is the fact that it still says live with StreamYard here, and this can be sponsored. So if anybody wants to sponsor the YEV balanced podcast, probably not Nissan at this stage, then get in contact, Chargeheads at gmail.com. So yeah, send us if you're interested, let us know. It won't be expensive for now as we're building. Sorry, George, you carry on.
Make it expensive. Yeah, so the Zoes are good cars. The problem with them are twofold. Getting parts of them are difficult because there's so many different ones and they're not as interchangeable. With a Leaf, you can basically take it apart from a 2013 one and fit it to a 2019 one. They're just about interchangeable. And then the battery leasing went on for much longer with the Zoe than the Leaf.
Yeah,
they only had battery leasing for a few years and then stopped it, and it was all battery owned. And it becomes the transfer of the battery lease is a nightmare that I just don't even bother getting involved in anymore.
Isn't it quite ironic that the Nissan had a few battery issues in terms of degradation, and it didn't have many of the battery leases on it, whereas the Zoe, they've not really had battery issues, and that's because aren't they air cooled, right?
Yeah,
it uses the air conditioning, doesn't it? That's why the air conditioning is twice as big as you think it would be for a small car. I mean, the clever thing with the Zoe, which is what not many cars have, is its onboard AC charger, because it uses the motor coils to do that. So effectively, it thinks it's regenning. So that's why you could get 43 kilowatt hours or 43 kilowatts, and now you can get 22. And the Kangoo and Megane adopt that same charging strategy.
It damages the motor though, doesn't it?
Well, that's actively cooled as well now, so that's why the air conditioning so big on them. But that was the one thing with Zoe's. It's critical if you have an air conditioning failure, you get it sorted, because it's kind of life of cooling thing. The other thing which is so annoying is when they fitted CCS to it, so many cars didn't have CCS, and the knowledge when you talk to a lot of dealerships around that, as they say it's a rapid charge, and somebody will take it home and realize it's only type 2. It's just they really should have made it. Maybe only the base model didn't have it, but it's that knowledge.
I think it was the ZE50 onwards. Is that right?
Yeah, so ZE50, but it wasn't standard rapid charge even on the top spec one, the GT line.
Yeah, it was
an option.
Going back to the, I'm just interested for myself, and hopefully this will be helpful for other people as well, is I really do like the idea of the 41 kilowatt hour battery Renault Zoe without the battery lease, because it hasn't got CCS charging, but it's got 22 kilowatts, which isn't the end of the world, although you've got to find a type 2, charger, of course. But I was thinking that might be a great runabout car. But do they suffer from many issues, George? Is there a particular Renault Zoe that's better than the other ones in terms of reliability?
We've had a few with melted pins because of that Kevin was on about, the fact they can draw a lot more through the type 2 charger. And we've actually had where the type 2 port into the charger within the engine bay has actually melted the pins in there, and then you kind of have Renault dealers say you have to completely change the whole charger unit, which is about £6,000. Where you can buy from RS components the actual the port and the pins and everything like that. So it's about a £500 fix to do it. We've done that probably 5 or 6 times now. So it seems to be a fairly common thing on them. But it's that. I mean, I love Leaves just because of the amount of stuff that we've gone through with them, and the fact that your 22 kilowatt charging is only good if you can, like you say, if you can find the post. And people complain about there being no CHAdeMO posts out there, but there's a hell of a lot more than there is 22 kilowatt Type 2 charging posts out there. So
from a point of view, yeah, for sure.
So being able to charge rapidly, the Leaf on everything apart from the very, very early Viziers have CHAdeMO 50 kilowatt, and like we said before, the adapters that are available out there and starting to come down in price make them a practical car. Even for, I would always say a Leaf is a short to medium range vehicle, but it's got that ability to do longer range stuff. I mean, I had an early Zoe on lease, and I picked it up from Manchester, and I didn't realize it was 22 kilowatt charging. Got to the motorway services and then realized, oh God, I'm going to be here for like 2 hours to get enough range to get back home again. So, whereas I'm sure used to Leaves, just being able to charge in half an hour.
Yeah.
The other thing with Zoe's, which I was expecting you to say, which is not an EV related thing, is the common thing is drop links and top mounts on the suspension.
That's just about Leaves and Zoe's is just the same. In fact, we keep a stock of lower control arms, suspension struts, drop links, and strut top bearings in for Leaves and Zoe's. So they're always on the shelf. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much what just went on my Tesla, ironically. So yeah, and
the good thing about the Nissan stuff is like bottom arms are like 35 quid plus the VAT. Strut top bearings are about the same. Even a strut is, I think, 95 quid plus the VAT. So nothing's massively expensive. I bet the Tesla stuff's a little bit more expensive.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cleveland EV have started doing their own pattern parts now from a place up in, I think, Sweden, somewhere in Scandinavia for sure. So my rear suspension, I can't remember what it was now. That'll come out in the video, just come out yesterday. So check it out if you haven't seen it already. When I went to Cleveland EV with Rusty. So yeah, but you know, it's done 107,000 miles, so it kind of needs those sort of bits and bobs now. But George, please keep me in mind if a high mileage EV comes in and around the $5,000 mark, give me a holler. I'll be your underwriter. But yeah, have you got any? How's the EV conversion world going for you guys? Has it been quite busy? You guys promote very much?
We don't promote much because at the minute we're booked up until the end of next year with the amount of conversions that we've got coming in. So our biggest growth limiting factor is staff and premises. So we only try to have at the moment 2 conversions on the go at once. So we've got a 1971 Reliant Scimitar and a Mark II Jag that are both getting converted at the moment, whilst the Mercedes goes out the door. And then we've got another Morris Minor coming in, an Aston Martin coming in, and then a Land Rover Defender. So there's no point in us doing any promotion because we couldn't actually fulfill the orders in a timely manner. So how
many conversions have you guys done so far?
Good question. I should know this off the top of my head, really, should I? I think it's about 7 now.
Okay, yeah.
The best one, and I'll tell you I love telling this story. So I get a phone call, this is 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Hi, it's Nissan here. Can you convert a Nissan Bluebird to electric using Nissan Leaf parts? And I was like, can you not do that? and they were like, well, no, we make loads and loads of cars, but we like exactly the same, but we can't make one-offs. We need somebody else to do it. So we ended up converting an 80s Nissan Bluebird for
you guys that did that.
Yeah, we did the new bird for Nissan.
Is that the one that I actually when we first met at Fully Charged?
Down at Farnborough. So that was they wanted to take it down there and show everybody. So it was on our stand alongside a Morris Minor Traveller.
I completely forgot that you'd done that because that was on Johnny Smith's Late Break Show as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he reviewed it, didn't he?
Yeah. And Hubner took it for a range test, and he got Nissan were telling everybody it would do, I think, 120 miles just to be on the safe side with journalists, and I think he got 140, 150 miles out of it. I bet Kevin could get even. In fact, I'll give Nissan a ring because I know it's just in storage at the moment. We'll recommission it and give it to Kevin and say how many miles he can get out of it.
That's always one thing I've been interested to compare because obviously it's going to be lighter because it doesn't have things like multiple airbags and multiple side impact beams. So it would be interesting almost to do, I mean, they maybe wouldn't want to do that, but actually to put it side by side to the equivalent Nissan Leaf? Because I think it would probably beat it on range.
Yeah, because it's actually got a full 40 kilowatt hour pack in it. Which was another weird thing, because I said to them, well, obviously he'll supply all the parts to us. And they went, oh, no, that was just too much of a headache for us to actually supply our parts to you from us. So can you go and buy them and then we'll pay you for them? Yeah, okay.
So it sounds, George, myself, Kevin, and Alex have been talking about doing a budget EV rally, and I think you are the man to join us as well. We just need to find sponsors. This is what we need to find for this.
I'm not quite sure any of our builds would be classed as budget though. So, but
well,
yeah,
I'm not talking about EV conversions. I'm talking about anything.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, Zoe's saying that a Nissan Bluebird is a brick. I would say it's a shapely brick.
It's not brilliant, but it is. It's less coefficient of drag, but it's much lighter than a Nissan Leaf. So
yeah. Well, maybe we should just find the cheapest cars we can and do a EV efficiency test on that. Just by hook or by crook, charge as much as you can, and then start from wherever and see where we get to.
Yeah. I'm going to Bagsy the wind knife then in that case.
Oh no, it's way too expensive, mate. It's got to be sub £5,000 EV rally. I reckon that's where it's at.
I need to find a really, really cheap original wind.
180,000 mile high-end ionic wind knife.
I used to have I've sold it now, but I used to have a milk float, so I don't know how efficient they are. But it wouldn't go very fast, but it might be quite efficient.
This is where you say you put a Nissan Leaf battery in it, so it's like it'll go for weeks.
We used a forklift battery in that, but yeah, we could do. I've just been up. I had a very early Citroen E-Berlingo, which was a Meals on Wheels van in London. And a guy bought it off me without us completing the restoration on it, and he just phoned me and asked me if I wanted to buy it back, which will be in the hundreds of pounds mark. But yeah, that might be interesting to get back again, a Meals on Wheels van, and let's have a play with that. Yeah, we've got all kinds of weird stuff like that lying around or to hand.
George, I think because I'm still off for a little bit longer, I think I just need to come up and see you.
Sure.
I might. It's quite a distance. Whereabouts are you guys, George? You're up in Yorkshire somewhere, aren't you?
Oh, Yorkshire's south for us. We are just south of Newcastle, Durham City, the most beautiful city in the whole of England.
Sounds like I'm going to be doing the WLTP mileage of the Tesla long range for that one to maximise my reduction in travel costs. There's no way I'm taking the camper van up.
No, just jump on the train. It's much easier. We're on the East Coast main line, so that's the best way to arrive in Durham.
Have to take electric, mate. It cost me less money than jumping on the train. On the train, it'd be like 500 quid or something ridiculous. You know what they're like. But there we go. Guys, have anyone that's watching the live got any questions? Something really big, actually, which I must inform everyone is no longer are we doing a live on a Thursday. We are changing the lives to a Sunday, and it's not this Sunday because we need, everyone needs a break sometime. So it's going to be the 18th of August, and it's going to be at 8 o'clock. So tune in for episode 3 of YEV. And another thing to mention, which I think is very relevant, is we've got the EV festival, the Electric Vehicle Festival. It was a washout. You might have seen my video a few weeks ago. Say a few weeks ago, it's more like a couple of months ago, where basically it was a complete washout, but we still went and there were some cars there anyway. But that is happening on the 5th of September. No, it's not. The 8th of September. So go and check out the socials for the electric vehicle show. It's kind of around the Leicestershire area. So please be there. We'll be there. Chargeheads will be there with a stand with a load of electric vehicles. Rusty will definitely be there. There's a small chance Wedgie will be there. Potentially Trike will be there. And there'll be certainly a load of other modified EVs there as well. And loads of different clubs there as well. And Moggy was going to be there. He was there last time. So was Johnny Smith. And I believe they're going to be there again for that. So make sure you check it out. George, are you coming down for that?
Wasn't planning on it because I'd forgotten about it, but I'll look and see if we can get something down there. So I'm sure we'll have something that we can stick on the trailer and bring down.
There we go. Great to have you there, George. I think Kevin is going to try and make it there as well. I need to get back to him and see if I can get him getting some entries. But guys, we're getting close to time. But is there any other topics or anything that you want to talk about that's been happening recently?
Well, actually, I've got a question, one question each for both of you. So for Kevin's question, I've got, out of all the techniques for being most efficient, what's the most important one?
The most important is going to be reading the road ahead. Lots of people are very reactive to their driving. So they're dealing with the situation as it happens. But what you need to do is read the road so far ahead that you're ready to deal with that situation in the smoothest way possible, rather than stopping. You see so many people stop at a roundabout, which is empty because they're reactive driving. Whereas if you're reading the road ahead, you've read that there's no cars on it, and you can just filter out into that roundabout.
Cool. That's good.
I've got a question for George, actually. What is the range using your normal driving style of a 40 kilowatt hour newer shaped Leaf?
I would say, because I haven't tested this one, but one with average wear and tear on the battery, you'll be 120, 130 mile if you were driving it kind of normally.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So my question for you is, why did you decide to do an EV conversion of the TVR?
Because I'm mad, absolutely mad. Now, I've narrowed it down to an MR2 or a Mark 1 or 2, or what was the other car I was going to do? It was going to be an MR Porsche 944.
Right.
And then I thought it was a really good idea to do a TVR.
And I'm sure the bank manager said no, it wasn't.
Well, I think in hindsight, the MR2 would have been really tricky. Yeah, it would have been great because I could have just stuck the motor in on the axles. It would have been an easier conversion, but getting the right amount of battery power would have been hard. But I think in hindsight, the MR2, it would have had to have been a Mark 1, I think, just for pure coolness, because I've had a Mark 1, but they're all pretty rotten. That's the only problem. So I'd have had loads of issues with rusting it out. The 944 Porsche is a great conversion for small drive unit, as Moggy has shown on his channel when he's done 944s before. But the fact that someone's already got a 944, you know, and someone has already got a Mark 1 MR2, because I believe one of the EV shops has done one. You know, I know that someone was attempting to do the same style TVR as mine, put the motor on the gearbox, but I've not heard anything since then. So I suppose mine would be unique in that respect. But, you know, we're nearly there.
So you've got a car that basically is, every time you're going to take it out, is plotting how it's going to kill you if it's a TVR, isn't it?
This is the absolute key to finding the best car. A car that no one's quite sure what it is. It's trying to kill you. And you have to think, like you've got to think about the road ahead. You've got to think about how much pressure should I be applying to this accelerator and how much would be too much. And number 3, British. Had to be British, didn't it?
No, I like my British cars.
There we go.
One of the great things about conversions is you can map the throttle to whatever you want. So you don't have, you can make it, you can take power out, you can add power. I mean, we spend as much time mapping torque curves and throttle knees and all kinds of stuff. Once they're completed and actually spinning the wheels, that's when that's when the laptops come out, and we spend a lot of time programming and road testing. And I think that the customers always keep on asking me, can I have my car yet? No, I haven't finished it yet. It just needs a few more tweaks.
Well, it's funny to say that, because I can't remember if we spoke about this last week, Kevin, but I basically want to map it. I don't think Ralph knows this yet, but like massive turbo lag. So just like, and then just like,
so nothing, loads of power.
Everything. Exactly.
Actually, I've got George before we finish. Obviously, you've talked about modifying cars. So within a Nissan Leaf motor, what is the range of power? Can you go higher? Can you go lower? What's the sort of broad spectrum of brake horsepower you can get out of a standard Nissan Leaf motor?
Well, Darla, go on, George. You look like you want to take that one.
Yeah, you know more. You follow Darla more than I do. But yeah, with our custom controller that we use for Nissan Leaf motors, we can actually get more power and torque out of it than the factory. The factory's limits are quite conservative because obviously they wanted them to be long range, well, as long a range as they could and longevity in them. But you can turn them up. Obviously, the problem there is you've got to make sure you've got a good battery management system and everything, monitoring everything, because everything gets much hotter and than it normally would do. But so an 80 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf motor, we have had up to 100 kilowatts. So and it was us that bottled before the motor did. So
yeah, so tuning isn't dead then, basically. So what people used to do to petrol cars or ICE cars exists with EV.
Absolutely. Well, the original plan, Kevin, was to put, after I had issues with, because I was originally going to hope to fit in a Tesla Model 3 motor. Then we had this is like the first few episodes of me doing the TVR conversion. Is I nearly put a Nissan Leaf motor in it, and we were going to tune it, and we were going to stick a Felton gearbox on it, which was like just a customized gearbox to connect to the Leaf, to connect to the prop. But it just didn't feel right. I mean, it would have been a lot easier, it would have been a lot cheaper. But when I think ultimately, if someone heard and it wasn't just about me and what I thought, but the build is all about trying to engage more pure petrol heads, not into EV. It's like, oh, a TVR with a Tesla motor in it. Well, that sounds quite exciting. And to be fair to the Leaf, it's a great motor and all the rest of it. But if someone hears that you've put a Leaf motor in TVR, you'll probably get death threats. Let's be honest now. I wasn't up for that. So, but that we were going to tune the Nissan Leaf motor, but and also I was going to. This is a really stupid idea, and it was in the YouTube, but I was going to go to lots of EV places, and they were going to paint a Leaf. And I was going to cover the TVR in leaves. So they were going to paint a leaf on it. So it'd have an armor of leaves around it. That was part of the idea around what the TVR was going to look like, which is obviously mad.
I'm kind of glad you didn't do that.
So here we go. My favorite retro EV conversion has to be Range Rover or Land Rovers. I love Moggies, Testarossa, and the Mercs, but for everyday use, the retro Rovers look mad. I'd buy a Munro too. Yeah, the Munro's quite cool to be in, to be fair. I'm on the search for an ENV200 for a little day van conversion for the kids. It's a good shout. Range ain't great, but they're cheap out there. What are they, 8 grand? 8 grand?
For higher mileage, 40 kilowatt hour ENV200, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're good little cameras. We've just put a rock and roll bed in one for a customer who's kitting it all out themselves. So yeah, we've been involved in quite a few ENV200 camper conversions as well.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. George, I'll speak to you after this because I think a visit is definitely necessary. So it's well overdue as well, mate. Well overdue. But I think that's it for today's episode. So like I say, just to reiterate, we'll see everyone not this Sunday, next Sunday. So we're changing it from Thursday 8 o'clock to the following Sunday, which is the 18th. So tune in again, and we'll have some more interesting electric stuff. Won't we?
Thanks for having us.
No, thanks, George. It's been great to have you on. Kevin, got anything else to say?
No, that's it from me.
Good man. Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Don't forget to give us a like and give us a share. Cheers, guys. The wave. Yeah.